GB News had to stop its regular broadcast this morning for a breaking news alert. RAF bases on British soil have been handed to the United States to launch strikes on Iran. Keir Starmer, the man who spent his career as a human rights lawyer, who agonized over every legal comma, has just authorized the use of British military infrastructure in a bombing campaign against a sovereign nation. And according to those who watched him deliver the announcement, he looked like he didn't want to be there. He looked like he was speaking under duress. Those aren't my words. Those are the words of a veteran defense editor who has covered every British conflict for decades. Here's what we're covering today. 1. What Starmer actually authorized and the careful legal language designed to give him an escape route. 2. Why defense experts are already warning this will trigger a massive parliamentary row over lawfare versus warfare. And 3. What Donald Trump has announced about the outcome of these strikes and why Britain may have just been pulled into something far bigger than Starmer bargained for. The Prime Minister has committed British bases to a war, and he couldn't even look the camera in the eye while doing it. Let's be precise about what happened, because the language matters. It always matters with lawyers, and Keir Starmer is, above all else, a lawyer. The Prime Minister announced that the United Kingdom has granted the United States permission to use RAF bases to execute strikes on Iran. He framed it as defensive. He said the bases would be used for, and note these words carefully, specific and limited defensive purposes, targeting missile storage depots. British forces would not be directly involved in the strikes. Specific, limited, defensive, not directly involved. Every single one of those words is a legal hedge. Every single one is designed to create distance between the British government and the consequences of what is about to happen. This is not a prime minister leading a nation into a decisive military action. This is a lawyer drafting a disclaimer. He accused Iran of pursuing a scorched earth strategy. He said the strikes were necessary to protect allies in the Middle East and UK nationals. But the framing, the careful, tortured, legalistic framing, tells you everything about where Starmer's head is. He doesn't believe in this. He doesn't want this, but he's been put in a position where he cannot say no to Donald Trump. Robert Fox, defense editor of the Evening Standard and one of the most experienced military journalists in the country, was brought onto GB News this morning, and his assessment was devastating. He said Starmer looked like he was speaking under duress, that he didn't want to be there, that he really didn't want to be saying all of these things. That is not the description of a war leader. That is the description of a hostage reading a statement. But it gets worse, because Fox didn't stop at body language analysis. He went straight for the constitutional jugular. He pointed out that labor leaders get into terrible trouble with legal advice on wars in the Middle East, and everyone watching knew exactly what he meant. Tony Blair, Iraq, the dodgy dossier, the legal advice from Lord Goldsmith that was twisted and reinterpreted to justify an invasion that destabilized an entire region and cost hundreds of thousands of lives. That shadow hangs over every labor decision on military action in the Middle East, and Starmer knows it, which is why the language was so painstakingly hedged, specific, limited, defensive, not directly involved. He's trying to build a legal firewall between himself and the consequences of what is about to happen. This is not a prime minister leading a nation into a decisive military action. This is a lawyer drafting a disclaimer. Fox raised the critical question that Starmer hasn't answered. What happens when British interests and bases are attacked? Not if, when. Because Iran has proxies across the Middle East, Hezbollah, the Houthis, militias in Iraq and Syria. The moment British bases are used to launch strikes on Iranian territory, those bases become legitimate military targets in the eyes of Iran and its allies. Fox called this lawfare, not warfare, and he predicted on live television there is going to be quite a row in Parliament about whether this is the right way to direct British armed forces. And he asked the question that cuts to the heart of this: is this the right way to direct your armed forces in a war? Now stay with me, because later in this video, I'm going to reveal what Donald Trump posted on Truth Social about the outcome of these strikes, and when you hear it, you'll understand just how far apart the American and British positions actually are, and why Starmer may have just signed up to something he has absolutely no control over. Keep watching. Let's talk about what's coming next, because the parliamentary fallout from this decision could be enormous. Keir Starmer leads a party with a significant anti-war faction, the Labour Left, the Socialist Campaign Group, MPs who opposed every Western military intervention of the last 2 decades, MPs who voted against action in Syria, MPs who marched against Iraq. Those MPs are not going to sit quietly while British bases are used to bomb Iran. They will demand a parliamentary vote. They will demand to see the legal advice. They will demand to know exactly what specific and limited defensive purposes means in practice. And Starmer's problem is that his parliamentary majority, while enormous on paper, is built on a coalition with dozens of MPs who fundamentally disagree with this kind of military alignment with the United States. GB News presenter Mark White raised another critical point during the broadcast. He asked whether Starmer actually agrees with what the U.S. has done. He pointed to the Spanish Prime Minister, who publicly condemned the American strikes. That's the question, isn't it? Does Starmer agree, or is he simply too weak to say no, too afraid of the diplomatic consequences of refusing Trump, too trapped by the remnants of the Trump whisperer fantasy to stand up and say, actually, no, we're not doing this? Because there is a difference between alliance and subservience. Britain is America's ally. That means cooperation, consultation, and mutual respect. It does not mean handing over your military bases on demand and then appearing on television looking like you've been forced into it at gunpoint. If Starmer genuinely believes these strikes are right, he should say so with conviction. He should make the case to Parliament. He should lead. And if he doesn't believe they're right, if he's doing this because he has no choice, then the British public deserves to know that too, because we are now materially involved in a military strike on Iran. Our bases, our territory, our risk. And now, here's what Donald Trump posted, because this is where you see the gulf between the American and British positions. Trump took to Truth Social and declared that the supreme leader of Iran is dead, that the entire military command has been eliminated, that Iranian people were cheering in the streets, that military commanders were calling by the thousands, wanting to surrender and seeking immunity. Whether every detail of that post is accurate remains to be verified, but the tone is unmistakable. This is not specific and limited defensive action. This is regime change language. This is a declaration of total victory. This is an American president claiming he has decapitated the Iranian state, and Keir Starmer authorized British bases to be part of it. Do you see the problem? Starmer told the British public this was about targeting missile storage depots, defensive purposes, protecting allies, and Donald Trump is posting on social media about the death of the Iranian supreme leader and the collapse of its military command. Those two positions are not compatible. Either Starmer knew the full scope of what was being planned and misrepresented it to the British public, or he didn't know and handed over RAF bases without understanding what they would be used for. Both options are catastrophic. The first is deception. The second is incompetence. There is no third option. And this connects to the fundamental pattern of this government. Starmer is reactive. He is led by events rather than leading them. He agreed to the Chagos surrender without understanding the consequences. He appointed Mandelson without considering the Epstein risk. He blocked Burnham without calculating the electoral damage. And now he's authorized military strikes without, apparently, grasping the full scope of the operation. This is not a prime minister. This is a passenger, sitting in the driver's seat with no hands on the wheel. So let's be absolutely clear about what happened today. Keir Starmer has authorized the use of British RAF bases to support American strikes on Iran. He used careful legal language to create distance from the consequences. Defense experts said he looked like he was speaking under duress. His own party is about to erupt over the decision, and while Starmer talked about specific and limited defensive purposes, Donald Trump declared the supreme leader of Iran dead and the military command destroyed. Britain has been drawn into something far bigger than the Prime Minister told you, and the man who authorized it couldn't even look like he believed in it. If you agree that this government is failing, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because this story is moving fast and the consequences for Britain are only just beginning.